So first we can look at these little plots pointed here on this first graph, and we're wondering, is this going to represent a function? Okay, well, we know that a function, the x's cannot be repeated in our ordered pairs, but the y's can. And so if you think about how your graph is, and you're thinking, oh, are those two repeated? Well, this point would be the point 1 and 1, right? On the x-axis 1 and the y-axis 1, and this, or negative 1 and a positive 1, pardon me. And then this one would be a negative 2. So we could say, well, this is negative 1, 1. And this point, when we think about it, would be a negative 2 for our x value and a positive 1 for our y value. So that would be the point negative 2, 1. Okay? And so here, of course, our x value is a negative 3. And here our x value would be a positive 2. So no, none of the x values are repeated. So yes, this could represent a relation that is a function. Okay, now let's look at the next little graph where we have the points plotted. And when we look right here, we can see, okay, this point would be the point on the x-axis 1 and the y-axis 1. So that's the point 1, 1. And then when we look at this point, we'd say, well, this, if we go from our x and our y, this is the point 1, 2. So although the y's aren't repeated, the x's are, and if the x's are repeated, it's not a function. So this one's not a function. Makes perfect sense, right? Okay, and if you also think about that, if you connected just those two, you would have this straight line right here for your graph, which would be the graph of x is equal to 1, right? Okay, so now, and we can see that x is equal to 1 is not a function. Okay, so when we go over here and look at these little graphs, and we're thinking, okay, x's can't be repeated. We know that, right? And we see how they worked on those plotted points up there. And so the vertical line test is okay. If we take a ruler or some straight edge and we go across, and we can see if there are any points along that line, that vertical line that we're using to go across, where x has the same value, and there are not in this first one. So we can say, yes, that's the graph of a function. And the same thing happens when we go across this way. Vertical line test, no, x is not repeated or found on that vertical line. Now, if we look at this third one, though, and we go across, okay, when we go across here, well, sure, right there, x, we have x repeated right here and right here. So we can just see very quickly with this vertical line test whether or not a graph is a function. If x is repeated, it can't be a function. And then we look at this last one over here, and we say, okay, every single x is the same. It's repeated all the way down. So this one definitely does not pass the vertical line test. So we know this one is not a function. And just like the one above, when we drew the line, we said that was equal to 1. Well, if you look at this graph, x is going to always be equal to 2. So that's this is the graph of x equals 2, and it is not a function. So what we can observe here, one thing we can observe, is that all linear equations are going to be functions, except for the x equals something, right? X equals 2, x equals 7. In the book they say x equals c, but it's just talking about these little graphs. Okay, so when we look at this question, does the equation describe a function? Well, the first one we come up with is y is equal to x. And we think, y is equal to x? That is weird. Well, all it's saying is if y is equal to x, then of course, if that would be 2 is equal to 2, or 1 is equal to 1. Whatever y is equal to, x is equal to. So of course, if you want to look at it on the graph, you would have 1 and 1. X is 2, y is 2, right? X is 3, y is 3. Yeah, you're going to have a linear equation there. And so, yes, it would be a function. If you have y is equal to 2x plus 1, we can recognize that as a linear equation, and we can say, yes, it's going to be a function because it's a regular old linear equation. Then when we look at x is equal to negative 1, we say, oops, it's not going to be a function because x is equal to negative 1. We know we're going to get that vertical line graph, so no, it won't be. And now if y is equal to 3, that means y is always going to be equal to 3. And so if we think about y always being equal to 3, 1, 2, 3, right here would be the graph of y is equal to 3. So yes, it would be a function because x can be absolutely any number. Y is always going to be equal to 3. But x can be any number, so yes, that would be a function.